Welcome back to our Safety Management System training series. The previous module, Hazard Identification and Controls, gave you an overview of the hazard and risk assessment tools we use in LW Survey worldwide. We have three main planning and communication tools in our systematic approach to hazard identification and control: the Site-Specific Safety Plan, the Job Hazard Analysis, and the Daily Field Level Risk Assessment. In this training module, we'll explain how to develop and use these tools. There are three key concepts to take away from this training. The first is that these tools are designed to work together to systematically address the hazards of your work. They are not designed to be redundant paperwork exercises. Second, they may be called by different names. Focus on the purpose of the tool, not its name. And finally, these tools are only as valuable as you make them. They require an investment of your time and job expertise to make them something more than just safety paperwork. When done well and incorporated into your job processes, they become evidence of your survey professionalism. We'll define each tool and then go into detail in the following slides. The Site-Specific Safety Plan is a project planning tool used by project team members to coordinate and communicate safety planning. It's particularly useful for planning and communicating with other companies on projects with multiple operations, but it can be used anytime you want to formally organize your project safety. It may help to think of the Site-Specific Safety Plan as both an internal and an external document. The Job Hazard Analysis, or JHA, is a craft-specific tool used by field crew members and maintained by the company. It prioritizes and documents hazards and control measures for field operations, and it's used to train new crew members. A JHA is an internal LWS Canada hazard ID and hazard control plan that may also be included as part of a site-specific safety plan. And the Field Level Risk Assessment, or FLRA, is a personal tool used daily by crew members at the worksite to address hazards unique to the conditions of the work they are about to conduct. The FLRA is designed to supplement the JHA, not to duplicate it. Think of the FLRA as a personal situational awareness tool. A site-specific safety plan is a preliminary communication and planning tool that provides a big picture look at health, safety, and environmental considerations for an upcoming project. It's prepared in advance of the work to establish uniform methods of work control and communication. Although most crew members will not be involved in creating the site-specific safety plan, it's important to review the plan with your team and understand the expectations for the work scope. In addition to the multiple documents you see on this chart, the plan will also include job hazard analyses from all the companies involved in the project. This gives the prime contractor its first opportunity to analyze the planned work and to identify potential simultaneous operations hazards. The elements of this plan fall under safety because the root cause of so many incidents has been shown to be a lack of communication or a lack of proper planning. Site-specific safety plans are also called project safety plans or health and safety plans. Remember, it's not the name of the plan that's important, it's the function. Site-specific safety plans provide a systematic approach to worker safety, and although they are most commonly found on large jobs, the core elements are actually legislative requirements of all jobs, large or small. At a minimum, Canadian and U.S. environmental and safety legislation require that companies document their plan, define safety roles and responsibilities, ensure that workers are trained, identify and eliminate or control hazards, conduct inspections, report hazards and incidents, prepare an emergency response plan, and implement spill prevention and waste management plans. Consistently organizing our safety planning and communication in an SSSP lets us make sure we've addressed potential hazards in your workplace and that we've met the legislative requirement to document our planning. The second tool we use is a job hazard analysis. The JHA may also be referred to as a job safety analysis or a job loss analysis. At LWS Survey, we've adopted the internationally recognized term of job hazard analysis primarily because it echoes the language found in both U.S. and Canadian legislation requiring hazard assessment and hazard controls. If you're working with a client who prefers to call it a job safety analysis, don't get hung up on the terminology. It's the function of the tool that's important. The job hazard analysis is a craft-specific tool developed and used by field teams and maintained by our company. It documents hazards and hazard control measures to be used in the field, and it's used to train new crew members. At LWS Survey, you will be provided with the existing job hazard analysis for your work scope, and we'll expect you to participate in our ongoing review and improvement of this core safety tool. The job hazard analysis is a field tool. There is no single right way to do a job hazard analysis, but there are universal best practices that we use at LWS Survey. Let's use the example of a job scope that includes all-terrain vehicles. The first thing you want to do is see if somebody in the company has already developed a hazard inventory or a job hazard analysis for this task. We operate worldwide, so there's a good chance you're not the first crew to be working with ATVs. You can also check the company project drive, the safety archives, or call your safety professional. In this case, let's say you're starting from scratch. Build some time into your schedule to develop the initial hazard inventory and the job hazard analysis. When you're creating a JHA, remember the purpose of it. It's a field communication and training tool, and it's also a written record of our expertise and the best practices we expect our crews to use to work safely. With that in mind, make sure the team creating this JHA includes someone with actual ATV riding expertise. That may sound basic, but you'd be surprised how many companies assign the JHA to someone with an office job. Step number 1 is create the hazard inventory. It's basically a list of all the recognized hazards of ATV operations. And what's a recognized hazard? It's one we can learn about through a process of investigating, verifying, and evaluating for accuracy. With ATV operations, that process is made easy. Hazard information is widely published through numerous knowledgeable sources. Start with the owner's manual for the ATV. Not only will you find every hazard the manufacturer is currently aware of, you'll find links and references to safety associations. Next, ask your safety professional to provide you with incident records, information, and safety bulletins related to ATV use. Then check the Canadian Occupational Health and Safety websites and also the U.S. OSHA website. All have valuable ATV hazard and controls information. Do an internet search using the terms ATV accident and ATV safety. And then pull from your own experiences, near misses, actual incidents, and even watching others. You'll quickly have a list of recognized hazards of ATV operations and recommended controls for some of those hazards. Legislation requires that LWS Survey maintain a hazard inventory list of all the recognized hazards of our work. And although the company's trained and certified risk manager is responsible for the in-depth risk analysis process, it's become an industry practice and an expectation of our clients that we have our field teams conduct a secondary risk ranking. The hazard list will be long. Remember, manufacturers are dealing with the untrained general public, everyone from youngsters to adults, and it's in their best interest to list every possible risk and precaution to take. But we're evaluating hazards from a different perspective. Our survey crews are experienced professionals in a work environment. And in Canada, they're required to obtain an ATV rider safety certification before conducting any work on an ATV. So although our initial hazard inventory will be long, we will focus our time and resources on the hazards we might actually face in a workplace. On your hazard inventory list, you'll have a column for recommended hazard controls. Some of those controls may be listed by the manufacturer. Some can be found from incident report preventative measures recommendations, and some are in occupational health and safety legislation. Make sure to consider published information when identifying hazard controls. Work your way down the list with your team, applying your skills and expertise to identify the safe work practices that will either remove or reduce the hazards. After completing the inventory list and risk ranking each hazard, you're ready to assemble your job hazard analysis. Remember that although the company will keep a copy of your JHA and is required to review it at least annually, this is your tool. Make it useful by listing specific safe work practices, by updating it when new tools or processes are added to the work scope, and by including photos and video clips whenever possible. Remember, the JHA is also a valuable training tool for new crew members. Break the job down into steps. List the job steps in the first column. Here we show driving the ATV as one job step. Next, list the hazards from your hazard inventory in the second column. And in the third column, list the specific control measures your team requires to either eliminate or reduce the hazard. The more detailed you can be, including photos or even video clips, the more useful the JHA will become over time. The goal here is to capture best practices and standardize our work practices. There's always more than one way to conduct a task. The JHA becomes the guideline for defining the method we've identified as the safest. Keep your target audience in mind and communicate useful information when you develop your JHAs. The JHA is not supposed to be a paperwork exercise, it's a field tool for your team. Listing slips, trips, and falls with a control measure of eyes on path doesn't communicate useful information. Our goal with the JHA is to share best practices company-wide and prevent injuries. Slips and falls have resulted from team members entering a tank farm containment area with sloped sides. So what did we learn? Most operations teams have devices we can use to lower ourselves into the tank farm, preventing injuries and protecting the liner itself. This JHA is an example of communicating those measures. When you've completed your job hazard analysis, you should have a useful working tool that documents best practices. Any new crew member should be able to study the JHA and understand the safe work procedures we expect them to follow. And yes, the JHA fulfills a legislative requirement to document the hazards of our work and to identify measures to reduce or eliminate those hazards. We review the JHAs annually, update them to reflect changes in our work processes, and even when we add new tools and make changes to incorporate lessons learned from on-the-job injuries. Next, we'll look at the field-level risk assessment. The field-level risk assessment is a tool used daily by our Canadian crew members at the worksite to assess the hazards of the work they are about to conduct. And although it's not a regulatory requirement in Canada or the United States, it is a best practice that we use to supplement the in-depth job hazard analysis process. Field-level risk assessments are conducted before the work starts. They're updated throughout the day when new workers come on site, when the work plan changes and introduces new hazards, and when conditions change significantly, such as weather, SIMOPS hazards, etc. LW's survey has our own FLRA cards similar to the job hazard analysis format. We strongly recommend avoiding the use of numerous checkboxes. Why? Scientific data and root cause analysis have produced two key facts. One, that the use of checkboxes fosters a sense of complacency. It is human nature to mindlessly check boxes without any serious thought. And two, that the actual process of writing and the planning that goes behind it is one of the best ways to enhance your analytical side and stay sharp. So if you happen to be on a customer job site and you're required to use an FLRA form with checkboxes, don't argue with the customer. Make the process as valuable as you can, and let your LWS Survey safety professional know you'd like to use the LWS forms. Most customers encourage us to use our own safety management system forms and processes. We just need to let them know we have them. We've covered 3 valuable tools in our hazard assessment process: the site-specific safety plan, the job hazard analysis, and the daily field level risk assessment. These tools are designed to work together to give you multiple opportunities to plan your work and to identify, eliminate. So to recap the 3 key concepts, the first is that these tools are designed to work together to systematically address the hazards of your work. They aren't designed to be redundant paperwork exercises. Second, they might be called by different names, whether you're in Canada or the United States. Focus on the purpose of the tool, not what somebody else is calling it. And finally, these tools are only as valuable as you make them. They require an investment of your time and job expertise to make them something more than just safety paperwork. They're done well and incorporated into your job processes. They become evidence of your survey professionalism. Thank you for your time. The hazard assessment process is the core of our safety management system, and it's the key to providing you with the best work environment possible. We look forward to adding your expertise to our best practices. To earn training credit for this safety management system module, please contact your safety professional for a training roster and a written test.